everybody, it's the FarmSim guy here, hope you're all doing well. We are on the mod test map today and we are going to do you a little tutorial for the very brilliant Proseed mod that is made by Wopster, who we all know from guidance steering fame. And I would say actually, if you don't know guidance steering, if you don't know GPS, you absolutely need to know that before you can use Proseed. So with that in mind, if you haven't dabbled with GPS yet, I'll put a link in the top corner there for you to go and check it out. I'll also put it in the description below to go and check out my tutorial video for that. But once you've mastered that, this is the next step. And the brilliant thing about Proseed is that it puts tramlines in your field like real life. So this is for you authentic players. This is for you guys who are doing the realistic playthroughs of Farming Sim 19. And it's a really good mod. So let me give you a little bit of a demonstration of it. So what we need here, obviously we need a seeder and we need a sprayer as well. So obviously sprayers are a lot wider than seeders. So with that in mind, we need to make sure that we've got a compatible set of seeders and sprayers. So if I jump into the cab here, first things first, you'll see that we're getting a warning shouting at us saying GPS is not active on this vehicle. You must make sure that the tractor you're using with your seeder and again the tractor you're using with your sprayer have both got GPS installed on them. So we do have it installed, so all we need to do is turn it on using Alt-C. There you go, and that gets rid of that warning. Now what we're going to do, let's have a quick look at the interface for Proseed. You can see there are three modes here: auto, semi and manual. We'll go through all three today. The next bit along here is the distance. Now this is the width of your sprayer. So the sprayer we've got here we know is 18 meters wide. It's the Governland one. Tracks is the number of tracks that the seeder will create. And underneath there, under distance, you've got 6 meters, which is the width of your seeder. To the side here, a couple of other buttons. This toggles fertilizer on and off, so you can actually use a seeder now without needing to use fertilizer as well, which is a nice touch. This either toggles on or off visible tram lines on the field. It will still put the tram lines in, and it still won't plant the seed where you want tram lines, but you've got a choice of whether or not you see those tram lines visually, or it just happens when the crops grow. This is your seeder here. This is your elements of your seeder, and the reason we'll come on to that in a little while. I'll show you why that's important in a little while. This icon here is called half-side shutoff. Now we'll come on to that when we do manual, but basically what it does, it only turns on half the seeder, left or right, depending on which side you need to turn off. And then this little icon at the bottom here is just audible sounds for when you're running your seeder. So nice and simple to start with. We're going to jump into automatic settings. We've got some nice wide fields here with big turning circles at the end, so we don't need to worry too much about headlands and things like that. But it will give you a demonstration for what this can do. So we've put in 18 meters here, which is the width of our sprayer, and it goes up in multiples of 6. It recognizes the size of the planter or the seeder, and then will give you multiples of that. Now what you need to do here, and a little bit of basic maths just to get your head around, you need to have an odd number of tracks, because the middle track is always the one where your tram lines will go. But that doesn't mean that you can't have sprayers and seeders of different widths that don't, multiply up as multiples of each other. But we'll come on to that in a little while when we do the manual version. But for now, what we're going to do, we'll jump into the field. And by the way, to access this, very much the same as auto drive, it's just your middle mouse button. So you're moving around your screen, middle mouse button brings up this, and then you can click and adjust everything. So what we'll do first and foremost, we will jump in the seeder, and we will line ourselves up, get our GPS course set up, and then we will show you how this works. Okay, so our GPS track is all set up now. We'll turn that on. We will just roll the seeder to the edge of the field here. We'll turn the seeder on, we will lower it down, and we will start. As you can see there, planting away nicely, no issues at all. So as we're running up here, you'll see that we're on our first row of 3, and if you look in the HUD, it says track 1 of 3 here. So if you can imagine, 6 times 3 is 18, which is the width of our sprayer. So for every pass of the sprayer, we need to do 3 passes with the seeder. Now, the middle pass is where we are going to want to put our tramlines in. And you'll see when we get to the end here and lift the seeder, you will see as we move along, it will recognise that auto drive has jumped to the next row and update the track accordingly. So if I lift the seeder now and I turn to the right, do you see when it's jumped to the next track, it's jumped to track 2 of 3. Now it will also jump to track 3 of 3 and then back to track 1 of 3. So you can skip rows like you potentially do already using auto drive when you're in fields with big machinery. So everything works as is, very clever, it works it all out separately. What I'm going to do is line up for the second row here, and the difference here now, if you see now in the HUD, there are 2 red lines. Here and here is where it's going to give you your tram lines. So if I turn on GPS, roll to the edge of the field, drop this in the ground, and roll forward, you will see now, if I zoom out slightly, it isn't planting in 2 sections of this row, and that is where your tram lines are going to be. Now, like I said before, you can switch the visual representation of these off. I'll just do that now to show you. If I turn that off, it just looks like a normal seeded field, but it will still leave the tram lines in. I like the fact that you can see that. It's quite a nice effect. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to run to the end here, and then what we'll jump over to track number 3, our 3rd row, and then we will run back up the other side. And in fact, we'll do the whole field, and then we'll come back and we'll show you what that looks like. But what I'll do, I'll run a first full, let's call it, set of tracks. So we've got 1 full set of tram lines built into the field, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. So here we are lining up for our 3rd row. You'll see it's jumped to track 3. I'll turn on my GPS again, roll up to the edge of the field and drop it down. Now, again, you will see we're getting a full row here with no tram line built in. Now you notice we're not doing a headland here. I would recommend, if you want to do headlands, we'll touch on that when we're doing semi-automatic or manual, but you would have to drive those manually. It's the easiest way to do it. This does work with Courseplay as well, so you could always try it with Courseplay. But for now, we'll show you the easiest way to do it. And again, as with all my tutorials, I'm not giving you a step-by-step instruction of how to do it. I'll give you a good overview, but the best part of it is going and working this out for yourself. There's nothing better than doing something yourself to work out how it operates. Now there's the gap we left in the field when we toggled off the tramline markers, but I will come back to that later on and show you that actually that does that will still put tramlines in there, even though you can't see it on this. So there we go, end of our first row. That is 3 6-meter rows, which tots up to 18 meters. And we are done. There we go, lift at the end there. We can turn round, join it back on, and we're just going to keep going now until this field is done. I'm going to stop this just a little bit short of a full row, because what I want to do is jump out and just show you. Obviously we'll let it grow, and I'll show you the results when there's a crop in the field. But I just want to demonstrate for you how this works with a sprayer. So let's unfold the sprayer. Like I said, it's a relatively small sprayer at just 18 meters. But if I roll this up to where we have set up our first row and get the tractor aligned with the tram lines, there you go. It fits perfectly, so you can run your sprayers up and down the field and make sure you capture all of those crops. It's a clever tool, it really is. Okay, there we are, end of the field. I'm going to jump out here, and what I'll do is I will fly up and we'll have a look. And you should be able to see the tram lines in there as we go through it. Now, obviously you'll be able to see that a lot better once we've got a couple of stages of growth in there. So what we'll do for now, we will move on to semi-automatic Proseed and talk to you about how that works. So over here we have got a 36 meter New Holland sprayer. Now a 6 meter seeder for that would not be an ideal scenario because it's an even number. We need an odd number of rows. So you could use a 12 meter seeder, that would work. In fact, that's what we will do. We will get ourselves a 12 meter seeder and I'll show you how it works with bigger rows. So there we go, we've got ourselves a rather nice setup there, a 12 meter seeder behind the New Holland here. And the difference with semi-automatic is you can start to think about doing headlands a little bit more easily. So we'll jump in and we'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we're in here, we're in our field, we'll switch this to semi-automatic here. We know we've got a 12 meter seeding width. We know our spray is 36, so we can jump up to 36, which means we've got 3 tracks again, very similar to we had in field 1, although they are much wider tracks. So let's unfold this. Now the difference here, while we wait for it to unfold, is every time you raise and lower the seeder, it moves it along a row for you. So if I press V now to lower it down, you'll see it goes to track 2. When I raise it up and lower it again, it goes to track 3. Raise it up and lower it down, it goes back to track 1. So you need to just be mindful. Now the other benefit of semi is you can change the track manually to stay in touch with things. So my advice to you when you're starting off at the edge of a new field and you're about to drop your seed drill in for the first time, put it on track 3 because then it will reset to track 1 when it starts. So let's get lined up with the edge of the field. We need to set up our GPS course as well, so we'll do that. And then we will do a lap around the outside of the field and you'll see then some of the benefits of semi-automatic. So let's set our A point. Just run along here a little bit. That's enough. Set our B point. Set our width. Is the right width for the seeder. Now we'll go back to the start here. Now we haven't dropped our seeder down at all yet. And you'll see why in a little minute. So there we go. Track 1, I just need to power it up so it starts to plant. Alright, we'll just ignore that, you don't have access. And there we are, planting track 1. So we'll keep going on this and I'll just again demonstrate. What we're not going to do around the headland is lift the implement at all, for the very reason that we don't want it to register moving to a different track. So when we get to the corners, we're going to do nice curved turns on the corners. We'll turn the GPS off for the headlands and the bottom of the field. And what this means is that when you move to the next row, it doesn't automatically kick in the tramline, which is our second row. So again, just the same as it was in the first field, but with a wider seeder. We've got 3 tracks, the middle track being the one where it will put the tram lines. So here we are, end of the row. I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to try and judge this appropriately. So if I turn here, around and try and line myself up with the top of the field, like so. A little bit of an overlap there, but I'll try and fix that. There we go. And we'll run along here. Now you see it's stayed in track 1 here. Hasn't tried to jump. If we run fully automatic, every time that GPS course jumped, it would change a track. But we are in control of the track here. So that is good. So we'll just run along the top here. We'll try and do a better job of making the turn here. I think I was turning a little bit too late last time. So let's do a little bit more of a sweeping turn. Obviously you're missing the corners out and you could go and tidy these up at the end if you wanted. So now we've turned GPS back on as we head back down this row. Again, as you can see, still in track 1. So nothing's changed. We are just running this headland. And then what we'll do, when we get right back fully round the field, we will start again. But we will lift the implement and drop it again, which will be the start of track 2. And track 2 is where we want our tram lines. So let's do this and then we will come back when we get to the end of this first row. So here we are coming up to the end of the first lap of the field. Like I said, nothing has changed throughout that entire trip around the field. So what we'll do now though is we will lift the implement when we get to the end here. almost doesn't matter if you close it off there, and I'll show you why in a little minute. So we've lifted the implement now. It still stays on track 1 until you drop it back down. So let's line ourselves up with our second track, which is here. That's the one we wanted. Now if I drop this down, I'm actually going to try and get it straight, because I'll show you this will be our way into the field with the sprayer. So if I drop that down now, let's turn it on, drop it down, track 2, and as you'll see in the middle, you can see our 2 red lines there where our tram lines go. So actually it's starting to put the tram lines in now. So we're still on the headland. We need to do 3 laps to create our 3 tracks for the headland. But what we'll do when we get to the end here again, we will do our turn like we did in the first lap, and try and do a nice smooth turn, but it will take the turn of the tram line with us. So here we go, end of the row. We're going to turn this off again. Like I said, I overturned it last time. I overcooked the turn, and again I think I've gone too far this time. Now if I turn here though, try and do a nice shallow-ish turn. I do need to line this up with our edge, because we have got to really kind of judge this by eye. So that was a bit of a hash actually. I would have wanted to turn a little bit sooner had I been being sensible there. But as you can see, the tramline line follows us. Let's try it again at the end here, see if we can do a better job of it. I think I need to make a point of turning a little bit earlier. So sort of around about here, I need to be considering doing my turns. Now you need to be careful, you can do a bit of an overlap there, because as you see we're missing a bit of the soil. But you can judge that however you want. Turn this on again and run down this side. And as you can see, we've got a nice tram line running down the field. Now you can go and fill those bits in if you want. By all means, you can do that at the end. So we'll run down here, and then we'll go and do our 3rd row, which again will have no tram line in it. This is probably slightly too big a machinery for the size of this field, but again, I think it's just demonstrating how this works. Okay, here we are, coming to the end of the row. So we will lift it up here. And we will run round, and we will start our 3rd row and our 3rd track in Proseed. And again, when we drop this down, what I'm going to do is drop it down a little bit further past, because we don't want to overwrite our tram line there. If I drop it down here, watch on the Proseed menu there, track 3, and again turn on the GPS, make sure everything is aligned, and as you can see the 2 marks have gone, and it is not putting our tram lines in the ground. So we can run along to the end here. Now this is where you can, if you choose to, tidy up your ends, make sure you capture any bits that you haven't covered off when you've been putting your tram lines. I think the important thing is get your tram lines nice and neat. And then anything beyond that you can tidy up afterwards. So yes, a good example here. I'm going to run this a little bit further so we capture that bit that wouldn't have been caught by the tram lines, because we turned a little bit late there. So I can capture that. I'm going to reverse. I'm not going to lift the drill though, because that would reset our tracks. In fact, I will lift the drill. There you go. I've lifted the drill. I'm going to line myself up here again, and what it will do when I drop it down is reset back to track 1. But all we need to do there, so let's get it lined up nice and neat so we know that our tram line is still in the middle. There we go. Now look, when I drop this down, you'll see it's dropped back down to track 1. All we need to do is go back and set it back to track 3. Make sure we're lined up, run along the edge nicely like this. We get to the other side, because actually after this we're going to start doing our up and down rows. And again, if we lift this, this is your opportunity here to capture these edges. Now I'm dropping it down again. It is track 1. I'm going to leave it like that because I know track 1 doesn't have any issues with tram lines. Now I'm going to lift it up again. Now if I drop it down again to tidy up this other bit that I've missed, it would jump onto track 2 and give me tram lines, so I don't want that. I want to move it to track 3, which would be a clean row. So I can run over this again, actually getting rid of some of the weeds as well, which is handy. So there you go, and lift again. Now I want to run down this side. Remember, this is still our first headland for our 36 meter wide sprayer, so I do need to line this up kind of neatly here. And still on track 3, which is what we want it to be. That will change to track 1 when we drop it down. There we go. So again, switch it back to track 3, make sure you've done that, make sure your GPS is on, run down to the end of the row. So there we are, just coming up to complete our first headland. Again, we can square off this final corner because we are going to run straight up again in a minute. So we'll lift there, perfect, loop round, and we're still on track 3, just as a reference in the bottom corner. What we'll do now, as you can see, a nice clean tram line going up the middle there. We will roll ourselves up to the edge, turn on the GPS, lower the seeder down, and we are back on track 1. We'll run up here, then we'll turn around at the top, and we should give ourselves some nice tram lines up and down the rows in the field as well. I'll put it on a little bit of a time lapse here so you can see us doing this, and we'll be back when we're done. Now here we are running up the last part of the field, and you'll notice that we are on track 1 of 3, but we don't have 3 tracks left to do, we only have 2. So this next pass down is going to be a tramline pass, but obviously the 3rd row has already been done on the headland. Now this is where you really hope, and this is where sprayer section control comes in incredibly handy. So we could run down that 2nd row there. I'll just lift it there and we'll do our turn, as you'll see the tram lines go in. And you'll see this in fields in real life as well. You know, not all fields are the right size just to fit perfectly your settings in. So if we drop this in here now, let me just remember to turn the GPS on. I reverse that up slightly, turn the GPS on, get yourself straightened up. You're never going to get a field that fits the width of your equipment perfectly. And see what I've done there? A brilliant live example of I lifted and dropped it twice. So in fact, I had to go back. So track 2 is the one I want there. In fact, I want track 1 because I'm about to drop it down again and it skips forward. So there you go, a live lesson in doing it wrong. But like you say, you see this in real life where you see narrow rows and things like that. So yes, sprayer section control there will mean that you wouldn't spray where your 3rd row should be, which is in fact the 3rd row of the headland now. It will sort itself out. So again, make sure you use a sprayer with sprayer section control if you've got it installed. But again, all 3 of these mods kind of work in unison together, and it's an incredibly clever system, I have to say. Again, just marvelling at the skill of modders to work all of this out. It's fantastic. So there we go. There is our rather large tramline set compared to the first field. 36 meter width tramlines in the field, and we'll stop at the edge of the headland there. We will lift that up and we are all done. So we're going to leave that. We'll let a few layers of growth kick in, and you'll be able to see it a lot clearer than you can at the moment. But actually that's pretty clear. You can see how good that is, and actually I've done that pretty neatly. I'm pretty pleased with that. Very good. Okay, let's fold up the seeder and let's talk about manual and why that is important. Okay, 3rd and final setting, and that is manual. Now here's a quandary. We have a 6 meter drill and we have a 24 meter spreader. So obviously that gives us 4 rows to create tramlines, and then we can't do that. We need an odd number because we need a middle row to put the tramlines in. But rather than going and buying new kit and having to work out how to do it that way, there is a solution, and that is manual mode. So we'll fire up the tractor here and I'll show you exactly what we need to do. So we've put our distance in here, 24 meters, and we've got a 6 meter width left. But actually what we're going to do is completely ignore tracks here. We need to do this manually. But basically what we're going to use is this function here, which is the half row cutoff function. And you can see the big red line underneath there. When you click on that, you can have it left or right. Let me demonstrate that for you now. So as per usual, you would set up your GPS course. So we'll do that and then we'll jump back. Okay, so GPS set up now. And basically what we're going to do here is we're going to split our 4 rows into 5. So we're going to take half of a row, then we're going to do 3 rows in the middle, which means we've got ourselves a middle row, in which we can put our tramline in, and then we're going to do half a row at the other side. So with that in mind, where it says manual mode, we're going to ignore tracks in the top corner altogether. We're going to have to kind of use our heads a little bit and remember what we've done and how far we've done it, but it should be relatively straightforward. I'm not going to run the whole field here because it will take quite a long time, but I'll just demo it against up one side here just so you get a gist for it. Now you can do headlands with this if you so desire. This is definitely the most time consuming of all 3 of the modes. I certainly find myself using semi-automatic the most consistently. But we're going to turn on GPS here. We're going to get to the edge of the field, and as you can see here, I have done half row cutoff. So on the right hand side, so this part of the seeder isn't going to plant. So power up the seeder and just run it along here, and as you can see, we are only planting using half of the drill. So that's going to give us our 5 rows. Half a row, 3 full rows in the middle, using the middle of those 3 full rows to put our tramline in, and then what we'll do at the end is another half row. So that's enough for now, I think. We will lift that. And again, like with semi-automatic, you'll see the track does not change now. You've got to do that manually. Now, you'll see here, though, that your GPS is now not quite right, because it's lining up a full row and you've only done a half row. So what you need to do here, or what I tend to do, is you know that actually your orange line here is your the same as your middle line. So line it up. You're going to have to do this a little bit by eye, but then you run your offset. You offset your GPS course to bring it back to the middle there. So something like that. Turn it on again. Drop the seeder down and do your first row. Now see what I've done there? Straight away forgotten to switch it back to full. So there we go. Full seeding again. That's what we wanted. So there you go, back to a full row now. So the hard bit done, that first bit, which is a little bit frustrating. So we've done that. Now we'll run down to the end here. Quickly lift the seeder again. And then I'll show you what we need to do. So this next row is going to be our tramline row. So now we're lined up. Loosely anyway, turn on our GPS. To turn on a tramline row, we now press Control R, and you can see it's brought up our tramline markers in the middle there. So we will get lined up, we will drop the seeder down, and as you can see we have our tramlines. So we can drop those in, run up to the top here, and then what we'll do is we'll come back, we'll do another full width row, and then our final row will be another half width. And that will tot us up our 6 meter seeder. We'll add up to a 24 meter width, so it will work with our sprayer, across, in essence, 5 rows, 2 half rows, and 3 full rows. So we'll turn here. So what we need to do now is get lined up again. Turn on GPS. And before we lower our seeder, Control R again to turn off our tram lines. Lower the seeder. And there we go, a full row again. And then when we get down to the bottom here, the final piece of the jigsaw is to put another half row in. So I'll just show you what you need to do to make sure you get your half row accurate. And then we will unfold the sprayer at the end there and just demonstrate that we've managed to do this right. Like I said, this isn't likely to be a mode that you're going to use particularly often unless you're a little bit of a perfectionist or you've got certain equipment that you insist on using. So there we go, we're going to line up here for our final row and we're going to do X to turn on GPS, and then we're going to remember to go to here, and again we're going to turn off the right hand side. We are going to lower this down, and there we go, we're doing a half row again. So we'll run it up to here, and then like I said, I will jump into the tractor with the sprayer attached. We'll unfold the sprayer and I'll just demonstrate how that's worked. Now I will show you actually to start the next row what you need to do, because again GPS is recognizing this as a full row even though we've only planted half a row. So there you go. Now when you turn round here you will see that it's giving you half a row again offset. So what you need to do is again reset your offset so it aligns with the edge of the finished seeded element like so. Turn on your GPS, move down to here, and again you would be starting on a half row to start off your next section. So remember, this time you're going to have to switch your half row over from right to left side. Run it, let's drop it down, and then again adjust your GPS when you get to the other end to run your 3 main rows. Like I said, it's not the most efficient way of doing it when you've got, if you can pick the right width seeder to work with the right width sprayer, it's definitely more helpful. But I wanted to show you this because it does give you that flexibility in a manual. So there we go, we'll lift up there. So just remember, that is our final, that is the start of our new row. This, our final part of our first section, was here. So I'm going to reverse just onto the field there so you can see the difference between the two. We'll get a little John Deere here and we'll get it unfolded. And you can see that if I roll over our tram lines, we should have a perfect match and butt up next to the seeder there. So there you go, that is manual, and that is if you don't have the right width seeder that matches your sprayer. So there we go, we've skipped forward time so you can see when the crops are grown. Obviously we've got weeds in all of these fields, but that's why we want to spray them. But as you can see, there's the tram lines in between the crops across all 3 fields. Different width of tram lines depending on which machinery you set it up with. But there you can now set up, you should be able to set up a GPS course running the width of your machine that should match the same width as the tram lines. So that is the benefit of Proseed. It gives you that option to do that. We've obviously let it grow to full ready to harvest level, so actually we can't kill these weeds now, so do bear that in mind. If you let it grow too much you can't remove your weeds, but just wanted you to see how it would look when it was in the final field state. And it also shows up on the minimap as well, so you can see your tram lines on the minimap, which is pretty cool too. So you can see where we kind of did some decent corners there and where we maybe overshot our turn and turned a little bit late there. There you go, a little bit of an overview of Proseed, an absolutely brilliant mod. Again, especially if you're really into authentic, trying to replicate real-life farming and real-life farming mechanisms. Again, another brilliant mod by a brilliant modder, Wopster, once again, nailing it, knocking it out of the park. So, if you like the look of this, if you are good with GPS and you've been playing with GPS for a while, it just adds another nice little dimension to things. So from me, for now, the FarmSim guy, thank you so much for watching. I hope this has been useful, and I will see you all again very soon. Bye for now.